Hello and welcome to the podcast. I'm David Brindle. Today I am joined by Grace Maley. Grace, how are you?
Hi, good, you?
Good, thank you. I'm also joined by Kieran Grierson. Hello, Kieran.
Hello. You
How are
okay?
you, mate?
Yeah, good, mate.
And finally, but what's that saying, last but not least, is Paul Jones. Paul, hello.
Hello, mate. You okay?
I'm good, thank you very much, mate. So what can you expect in the podcast coming up? We've got plenty of stuff. We're going to talk some transfer news. We're going to discuss whether Liverpool have recruited well enough. We're also going to look ahead to Leeds, and we'll finish off with our hot topic of the week. That's all to come. We'll start off with some transfer news then. And Paul, let's talk about Dejan Lovren. He's left Liverpool. What are your feelings about him leaving and going to Zenit?
Yeah, I think the time was probably right for him to go. I think there was always a mistake in him. And we've got decent money for him. You know, you only have to look at the Watford game. I think Watford played on him, Watford away, and ended up getting 3 goals from it. So, best of luck to him. He's gone over there. He's already won a trophy. He's already added to his trophy cabinet. I don't wish any ill feeling towards him. He was a good servant for us. He's won a couple of medals with us, won a European Cup, obviously won a title with us. So, I hope that it works out for him, but I think the time was right for him to move on. I think he's 31 years of age, so we've got to go out and sort of move on. And you've got younger talent coming through. You've got Billy Cometio, who looks like he may be taking that sort of 4th spot over Lovren now that he's gone. So. Yeah, you've got to keep sort of evolving and ever changing and improving all the time. And I think, as we say, I think Lovren's time was just about right to move on and move on to other things.
I'd agree with that about Lovren. I think, obviously, everyone used to other fans used to call him liability Lovren. I think if you're taking out the weaker links in the side, I think, yeah, he's definitely someone who needed to go. Obviously, we've brought in Tsimikas, who was a defender, so hopefully we're trying to strengthen that back line, but I do still think last season we got quite lucky in terms of Van Dijk not getting injured. I think a replacement or someone who could, no one's going to replace him, but someone who could come in and strengthen that back line is really important for us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Kieran, would you say Liverpool have done well to get the money that they did for him?
Well, yeah, definitely so. I think he's been a great servant to us while he's been there. I know he has had the error in him, but yeah, 11 million we got for him. I was expecting something in the range of 4 or 5 million. So to get him out for 11 million, I was more than made up, which is about the same price as what we got Tsimikas in for. So not exactly like for like with Tsimikas being a left back, but yeah, in terms of the money we got for him, absolutely made up with that. It was a good bit of business.
You just mentioned Tsimikas there, Grace. Obviously, we've brought him in as a bit of competition for Andy Robertson. What are your thoughts on that? Does he need competition? Is it a good signing?
I think it's always important to keep competition in your side, just because sometimes your players can get complacent and think, oh yeah, this is my spot now, no one's going to take it off me. But if they do get injured, you always need someone to fill that gap. And I think Robertson's been really good for us. His assist last season, he's literally smashed it. So I just think, yeah, obviously there is competition, but it's how often is he going to use Tsimikas instead of Robertson? Is he going to alternate them? Is he just going to keep Robertson and use Tsimikas to just eventually come in and replace him if anything happens? We'll just have to see how that goes, really, won't we?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's going to be difficult for him to get Andy Robertson out of the team, but I totally agree with you. Having someone behind you that's going to, potentially push Andy Robertson to the next level. That's a scary thought, that Andy Robertson might have a next level as good as he's been. I got a lot of stick from friends for saying Liverpool need another left back. Liverpool need another left back. And they were like, no, we don't need another left back. And this is exactly why I think we needed another left back, just to give him a bit of competition. Milner done a decent job filling in there. James Milner's just brilliant everywhere, isn't he? But you need a left back. Milner's not a left back. Paul, what are you expecting from Tsimikas when he eventually, maybe gets his opportunity?
I think he'll probably, Klopp likes to sort of bed players in slowly. So I don't think we'll see him immediately. I think, obviously, Andy Robbo's your number one choice at left back anyway. I think as he would be for most sides. But it wouldn't surprise me if you've seen Tsimikas maybe in the League Cup tie, maybe to start with. potentially bring him into some games, maybe home games against the likes of, say, and I don't want to sort of do anybody a discredit here, but, maybe home games against, say, Aston Villa or whoever that may be, round sort of mid-October towards November time, and let him settle in, let him learn the language, let him get used to his teammates. He's done it before. Andy Robbo didn't come into the team, for about 3 or 4 months. Fabinho, very similar. He's done it with Minamino lately, and you can see that Minamino in pre-seasons look quite sharp and looks like he's getting used to his teammates. So I think we'll probably see a similar pattern with Tsimikas. Hopefully he will. For me, I think the biggest beneficiary of that transfer will probably be Andy Robertson. There's nothing better than looking over your shoulder and going, hang on, if I'm not performing well here today, I know there's someone there chomping at the bit for my place. So I think, as you say, it's a scary prospect of Robertson moving on to the next level. He's probably one of our most influential players throughout the last 2 years. So I think he will benefit from it. And I think Tsimikas probably knows that he's going to have to be patient, and I think he will be. He's not been an ever-present for Olympiacos. He went out on a couple of loans. He went to, I think he ended up going to Holland and things. So I think he understands, and he's probably where before he came to us, they probably had conversations and said, look, you will come in and challenge, but give yourself 3 or 4 months to get used to the style and what's expected of that role, because there's not many teams who use a left back or a right back like Liverpool do at the moment. The more like wingers than defenders. If you're used to playing in a league, no disrespect to the Greek leagues, but if you're used to playing in a league where you're not getting attacked, then you can go forward. That there is going to be a bit of adjusting to do for him. So I don't want to put any pressure on him. And to be fair, I don't think as a fan base, Liverpoolians do put pressure on the players early. And I'd like to see him settle in. And then maybe in the new year, as the games start to come thick and fast with the FA Cup and the return of the Champions League and things like that, that's when you might start to see him a little bit more.
Well, we'll wait and see on Kostas Tsimikas. Let's just round up a couple of other bits of transfer news. Shea Ojo has gone to, not Rangers, sorry. He has gone to Cardiff this season. He was at Rangers last year. Season-long loan. Elephant in the room. I don't know what you can call an elephant in the room. The whole Thiago and Wijnaldum situation. Kieran,
he's going, isn't he?
Do you think he's going, Grace?
Definitely, I think he's going. You're not going to turn down a move to Barcelona, are you? You're not going to say no.
Depends, doesn't it? Depends. Is he going to play?
What does it depend on?
Well, it depends on money first and foremost. It depends on whether he's going to get a game, because he plays quite a lot of games for Liverpool. It's also a bit weird that Barca have ruled himself out to sign Thiago. I know he's been there before and all that. They've ruled him out. I don't know. I get the feeling that if you're at Liverpool at the moment, this is probably the happiest, maybe the happiest part of your career as a player. Because when you see videos of the squad and obviously they win games and they win trophies, they all look together and happy. And I don't know, would you want to leave that? It's difficult when if you get a good job, for us, if you get a good job in life and you go, I've been offered a different job, do you want to leave? It's difficult, it's hard. It's
also the situation of Barcelona aren't what they used to be. Obviously, Messi's on his way. So I don't think they're going to be top level like they used to be. I think our comeback against them pretty much proves the start of their downfall to them now. Obviously, they're nowhere near as good as they used to be. So I think it's a case of, yeah, you would want to go to them, one of the top teams in the world. But if you're happy at Liverpool, as you say, it is one of them. Like, do you go? Do you stay? If you're happy here, like,
it's a really tough one. It's a really tough one.
I think not just obviously I'd want to keep him. I'd love Gini Wijnaldum, but football's also a business. This is the last year of Wijnaldum's contract. The club are obviously going to look at it and go, well, if he wants to know his stance, because they probably get 20 million for him now. They leave until January or the end of next season. They're going to get nothing for him. So if he doesn't want to stay, I think the best thing for all of us would be for him to leave, because that's how the club will look at it. They'll want to get that money in.
Well, just on that, Kieran, you say it's a business, and I understand that, but is it good business to spend somewhere in the region of 30 million? That's the rumoured amount for Thiago, who's also out of contract in the summer.
I mean, that's a very fair point you bring up. But it depends if Wijnaldum wants to go. I obviously saw the end of the Champions League. I've always been a massive fan of Thiago, and the way he ran some of them games in the latter stages for Bayern there, he was sensational. So yeah, I can understand that, but we need the here and now. We're at the top of the pyramid at the minute. We need to stay there, and I think certainly if Wijnaldum's going, we have to spend that money.
Yeah, I think we're going to come on to recruitment at the moment and whether we've done enough. But before we do, let's just quickly whiz through some of the other players that are rumoured. Harry Wilson. Paul, what are you thinking? Harry Wilson, should he stay or should he go?
I think the team selections in pre-season probably tells you round about what his position is in the squad at the moment. The likes of Harvey Elliott have featured more and have had a more prominent role in pre-season. So you're probably going to see him leave. What sort of figures we're talking about, I don't know. There's all sorts of rumours of 20 and 30 million pound. Obviously that's for the men in the suits and things, but it's a difficult one because he's not got much game time. There's talks of loans and things, but where do you draw the line with loans? How many times do you loan them out? And if they are never going to be ready, then is it worth just cutting your losses or, maybe even getting a profit on them? So I think Harry Wilson will be one of those out the door that will boost the coffers for future transfers coming in this summer.
Grace, Marko Grujic. He's featured a little bit more than Harry Wilson in pre-season, and he tends to feature a bit more in pre-season. But is he going to stay?
I'm not sure. I just feel like for these younger players, it's so hard to break through into our squad. I think in terms of your competitions, like they'll be lucky if they get an FA Cup game, if they get a Carabao Cup game, if they get a, obviously we've got such a strong squad. I think it's so hard for these younger players to find a breakthrough. Trent, obviously, similar age to me, was one of our younger players. He's made the breakthrough for the first team. He's absolutely smashing it. But I think someone like Grujic, he's just not featured, has he? So it's like, is it worth him staying? If money came in for him, he probably would go. But the club couldn't really say no to that because it's money that we could probably do with to get someone else in.
It certainly looks that way. It looks like we're selling to buy, which is a bit weird for a club who's a financial powerhouse nowadays. I think it's difficult because they haven't really had the chance in the first team. As you say, Trent's got his chance when there was a shortage of right backs. He got thrown in at the deep end. So I think, maybe Harry Wilson deserves a chance to just...
Yeah, I think he proved last season 100% that he deserves a chance. Like, if you look at some of his goals, my God, he scored one from 40 yards out. I was like, wow. Like, obviously you'd love someone like that in your squad, but who'd you take out to put him in? Like, how can you get rid of these world-class strikers, or how'd you get rid of to put him in? It's just so hard for him to find a breakthrough.
He's never going to dislodge Mane, Salah. I know he doesn't play up front, so he wouldn't get rid of Firmino, but... let's talk a little bit about recruitment then. We've seen the likes of Chelsea spending ridiculous amounts of money. We've seen Man United getting big players in. Man City, obviously, every season are going to spend money with the amount of money they've got. I'll dangle this out to anyone who wants it. Have we signed enough players, or are we allowing the teams around us to close that gap? Don't all jump at once.
I'd like us to get a couple more in from especially the amount of millions other teams are spending. I mean, we're going into the new season. I think what we signed just Simicast really. So certainly I'd want to cover a lot of other positions as well. It's going to be another long hard season. Season's going to be not like the lockdown one, but there's still going to be pretty much 2 games a week, 3 games at Christmas. And I think we have been, at times, fortunate with injuries in the past. Like, you get an injury to Salah, Mane or Firmino, what's the backup? There isn't really a great deal. So, personally, for me, I would like to see some more people in there.
The way I look at it is you look at, like, a starting 11 for City. You look at what they've got on their bench. The whole thing's world class. Their replacements on their youngsters. Even their youngsters are world class. Like, they will automatically fill the gaps. Whereas I think for us, we don't have that backup. So, like, who are you falling back on? Your youth team. And it's like, realistically, I know people might not come in for the money and think, oh, we're not going to get a first team game, so is it worth signing for them? But I just think you never know what's going to happen in a season. Like, God forbid, and I really hope it doesn't happen, but Van Dijk could get injured within 3 games. Anyone could get injured. Salah, Mane. Who have you got to come in? Like Harvey Elliott, yeah, amazing. Nico Williams, amazing, but they're not world class. So it's like, how do you compete with these teams who have the world class players if you don't bring anyone in to keep up with them?
I mean, I think you're fighting a losing battle when you're talking about City, because they can just get whoever they want, literally whoever they want. And it's been proven last season that FFP doesn't mean anything anymore because they got away with everything. But it is difficult. And then on the flip side, I mean, you know, if Van Dijk gets injured, can you even replace someone as good as Virgil van Dijk unless you know, going to go and sign like Aymeric Laporte, which is never going to happen? Paul, but what are your thoughts? You know, are you thinking that are we letting our grip on the title slip in pre-season and transfer-wise?
I'm quite split on it, to be honest with you. I think we've had the conversation before about, as a club, we do spend everything that comes in. I know there's all these sort of reports of record profits and all the rest of it, but when you actually dig down into them, we spend everything that comes in, whether that be by giving the likes of Van Dijk and Firmino and etc. new contracts. And let's not forget, our players' contracts are heavily reliant on performance-related bonuses, which have been paid a lot in the last couple of years in terms of European Cup wins and winning the league. So the money is going out. It's just that it may not go out as noticeable as the likes of Man City, who can just go out and throw out 60, 70 million pound on a player here and there, and whether he sits on the bench, they don't care. It's a difficult one because I think that if you look at it both ways, you've got, you know, in a sense, we are a sustainable business model. You know, we have a little bit of debt, but I think we've got the least debt out of the top 6 by a long stretch. We've got, you know, obviously a bit of debt on the main stand and potentially building the Anfield Road end. We've nearly finished the new Kirby training ground. So I think as a club and as a structure, we are developing. And the way I look at it, you know, I think when Klopp came in just under 5 years ago now, we probably had 3 or 4 players who you'd look and go, yeah, he's Liverpool quality. I think obviously over the years that sort of got a little bit more each year, and we're probably up to say 13 or 14 now who you'd say, yeah, he'd get into more or less any team in the world, never mind in the country. And I think the difficulty to get that to 15, 16 and 17 is you potentially do have to have a business model like Man City and like Chelsea, where your owners have got deep pockets and it doesn't matter what you spend, because if you get fined, well, so what? We'll just pay the fine as well because we're not bothered. Liverpool haven't got that business model, and Liverpool, if they went down that business model, I don't think would last with the current owners probably more than 6 to 12 months. I think it's again also in terms of the team, I think, you know, we've sort of touched on the transfers and gone, you know, we're talking about who, Harry Wilson, and who can replace Mane, Salah and Firmino. And I think when you look at incoming players, unless you're spending 60 to 70 million pound on players, are you going to be able to replace those? And then if you're the likes of Harry Wilson or a player who's 18, 19, 20 years of age, are you going to want to come to Liverpool knowing full well that you're going to play second fiddle to the likes of these players? It's a difficult one, and in a sense, we are a little bit of a victim of our own success at times in regards to that.
Definitely. I think we've said this before, Paul, is the only real way we're going to know the answer to that question of if we've signed enough players is at the end of the season. That's the only way we're going to know.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we had a similar sort of summer last year. We only bought the young centre-half. And, you know, people were saying, how are we going to bridge that gap? And all of a sudden, we've blown everybody out the water. Now, I'm not saying that we'll do that again this year because, you know, everyone's gone out and spent heavily. And to be honest with you, if I was Chelsea and Man City and Arsenal and things, and I'm finishing 30 and 40 points behind Liverpool, of course, I'd want to go out and spend the money to close that gap. Of course you would. You know, I think it's more difficult to finish in the top 4 over the last 2 or 3 years than it probably ever has been. For 10 years or so, it was always a 4-horse race. I think now there's 6, 7, or maybe even 8 if you'd include the likes of Wolves and Everton, who could potentially challenge for that top 4. So people are gambling and throwing big money at it because they know the reward at the end of the season, if you do get into the top 4, is the Champions League money and the holy grail that brings. So it's a difficult one, and I do think that you've got to sort of respect FSG in that they won't sort of put the club's future at risk just for short-term glory. So it's a difficult one, but we've got to go with it.
Just before we move on to looking ahead to Leeds, Kieran, the only thing I'm thinking there, what Paul is saying, is there any risk that Liverpool will become a little bit stale without the addition of new players? I know you're bringing in like Tsimikas and Minamino, but they're players who are always going to just be, not always going to be back up, but are intended and brought in as cover for the first team. Does someone like Thiago stop Liverpool going stale?
Yeah, I'd say so. Again, going back to what others have said about players coming in for competing for places. If you've got that competition, the side's always going to drive itself on and be forward. Where's the go style? I mean, at the end of last season, we did win the league by 18 points in the end, and then we were a long way clear of third. So I wouldn't say we had to go mad in terms of bringing player after player, and certainly what other clubs have done. The team, last season, 99 points. I mean, won 27 out of the first 28. So the foundations are definitely there. I just think like a couple of additions, like 1 or 2 fresh faces in the club, I think the world of good to this team.
Okay, we'll move on from that. Obviously, it's going to be it's got to be an issue that pops up throughout the season, where people will look back on the summer and say, "Oh, we should have signed more," or So we'll just see how that goes. Grace, obviously, we're back this weekend, Saturday. We play Leeds at Anfield. You're made up. Can't wait.
Wish we were all in there, but
I know. Well, we're going to come to that. We're going to come to that. Stop jumping the gun. Obviously, it's a newly promoted side. We done all right last season when we started against the newly promoted side. Was that last season or the season before? It was last season, wasn't it? It seems like such a long time ago. Played Norwich. What's the? I mean, is it a risk playing a newly promoted side, especially like Leeds, where there's a bit of a rivalry?
I'd say it probably is a risk in terms of how well they did last season. They'll be well up for it. They'll think, right, first game of the season. Yes, we're against the title holders, but so what? Let's go there and prove to them why we're in this league. So I think, it is a risk, because I think for us, we should still start strong. It's important that we get those first wins under our belt so that when it gets to Christmas, hopefully we can take our foot off the gas a bit. So I think, it is a risk. We do need to start strong, and Leeds will be well up for it, so it could be a big challenge for us.
It's massive for Leeds, Kieran, isn't it? First time back in the Premier League for, 16 years? And obviously they've won the championship, so they're going to be really riding high. It's going to be a tough one, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, 100%. They're going to come to Anfield full of confidence. And, especially with Bielsa in charge, he's going to have planned every single last detail that possible. You saw it with, obviously, the Spygate and Derby last year in the press conference that came out after that. He will have noted everything down about this club. What I'll be interested to see is whether they come with the game plan they had for most of the championship last season, that pressing mentality which they had for 90 minutes. Whether, first game of the season, is everyone going to be fit enough? It only takes one player in the team not to press, and then all of a sudden the system just fails and we'll, sneak in and score. So, it'd be a very interesting game. Opening day of the season, under Klopp, I think our record is sound. We've won 3 and drawn 1 anyway. And looking back, scoring 15 goals in 4 games. And as we saw last season, we have to, we start off, like house on fire. So, interesting game. Obviously, champions of the championship, but I'd like to think we've got enough about us to get that first win on the board.
I remember seeing a tweet after Leeds won the championship, and it was like something along the lines of spare a thought for Marcelo Bielsa's coaching staff, who are now going to spend the summer watching every Burnley game since 2008.
Yeah.
And I mean, that is the man, isn't it? You know, that is the man. He's going to be interesting. Paul, what are your thoughts on it? Obviously, it's a big rivalry. You know, maybe the younger generation won't remember Leeds. I can certainly remember the likes of Viduka and Harry Kewell playing against us 2000, 2001. It's a massive game, isn't it?
Yeah, God, I remember Viduka scored all 4 and they beat us 4-3 in a 12 o'clock kickoff, yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah, the same day I ended up going, I don't know why, I ended up going to Rotherham against Wigan as well at 3 o'clock. That finished 1-1. Mark Robbins scored and Kevin Sharp equalised, I think. Anyway, I think for Leeds it's been far too long. They've been mismanaged for far too long in the sort of mid-2000s, and they suffered the ultimate consequence. The back, where I would suggest they belong, and for me it will be a tough game. They will come at us, they'll be right at it, and I think the conditions that we're in at the moment with COVID and things, I think Leeds will probably fancy the chances. What better way to get up and running than going to home of the champions, no supporters, no crowd on your back, and pull off a shot result. I think they'll be in our face. I think they'll, as Kieran said, they'll press high. They'll probably play Bielsa's favoured formation 4-1-4-1. He's probably had all sorts looking over the wall at Melwood. It's not it's not the most secure of venues, is it, to train? And that's probably why they want to move to Kirkby and things like that. So there'd have been all sorts looking over the wall, standing on wheelie bins and everything. So they will be fully versed on how to come to Anfield and try and get a result. In a sense, I hope they don't change the philosophy, and I hope they don't come and go defensive for 2 reasons. One, I think Liverpool have probably got their best chance against a team that will play more open and more expansive. But also, I want Leeds to, as a football fan, I want Leeds to come and show what they're about and not change their game to respect us as an opposition too much. So it's funny because it's one of them games that it could be 0-0, and yes, it could be 4-4. It really could. It's going to be an exciting game. I know you're going to talk about it in a minute. It's one that I'm disappointed not to be going to, put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be a fantastic game to go to. You can just imagine the atmosphere. I mean, I've only been to Ellen Road once, and it was only a League Cup game, but the atmosphere was just fantastic. I like what you say about someone standing over on a wheelie bin looking over the Melwood wall. I kind of hope he'd have learned the lesson and he won't have a full Leeds trackie on with, what are they called, binoculars and all that. I hope he's learned his lesson. But probably not, knowing Bielsa, he just doesn't care. Paul, I'll stay with you because I think I'll come to all of you on this. Van Dijk's obviously going to start at centre-half. Who would you like to see partner him?
Ability-wise, I think I'd have to go with Matip. I think he's been our most consistent performer alongside Van Dijk as a partnership. That's not a criticism on Joe Gomez. I think Joe Gomez has still got a lot to learn. I just think Matip is a lot more assured, and I think we seem to look as a team a bit more comfortable when Matip is alongside Van Dijk. The only problem is with Matip is obviously he gets injury after injury. So for me, yeah, I wouldn't be disappointed if seeing Gomez, but I would prefer it to be Matip alongside him.
I think before Gomez got injured, the injury that saw him out for like 8 months or something, I think I would have said that I would have preferred Gomez to start, because I used to see Matip as a bit of a weak link and a bit like all limbs. He'd just run at people and then he'd be like, wow, I'm way out of position and I don't know where to go. And then everything would just go wrong. But I think now, over the time that Gomez was out, he's managed to prove himself and prove why we give him a place in the starting 11. So yeah, I'd agree with Paul. I think he should start along Van Dijk, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably go along with that as well. I'd probably have Joel Matip again alongside Van Dijk. You don't know, obviously, Joe Gomez is obviously playing with England this week as well, so you need to assess the condition of how he is when he comes back. But yeah, I'd probably just edge it for Matip at this stage. But again, as Paul said, if it was Gomez that lined up, alongside him, I wouldn't be too disappointed. I'd trust him to put a decent shift in there.
I mean, I do think either way, I'm quite happy. But it's Gomez for me. I'd rather see Gomez start. I don't know what it is. Matip's got a touch of Sakho in him. And I liked Sakho, don't get me wrong. But Grace, you're right. He's all limbs. He's like he's too big for his body.
He runs and then he's like, wow, I'm out of position.
Yeah.
Why am I here? And then he just panics and runs back.
As I say, he's got a little element of Mamadou Sakho in him. And again, I like Sakho, but he used to just look like, you watch Sakho and it was just like, he's give the ball away. And then he'd pull off this 20-yard pass and you go, oh, hang on. Or you'd think, oh, that defender's pressed him, he's caught him, that the attacker's caught him, and the next minute he's done like 3 step overs and he's out of danger. And you're just like, how's he done that? But Gomez is a little bit more susceptible to making mistakes. I think Matip's not as although he's more injury prone, saying that they're both injury prone, aren't they? But I don't know, there's something about Gomez and Van Dijk. I think they've got a good partnership. But as I say, I think the really good centre-backs, as I think we mentioned a bit early on, we probably do need another one just in behind them in case one of them, which is bound to happen, one of them are going to get injured. But yeah, I wouldn't like to see them both play together. I think that would be a bit iffy. Gomez and Matip centre-half pair, and I wouldn't like to see that.
Yeah,
the only other thing really that we can talk about, I suppose, Wijnaldum, is he going to play or not? There's plenty of options in the midfield, though. Again, there's Casey, there's Chamberlain, there's plenty of options. Has Minamino, do you think, Grace, had enough of a, played well enough in pre-season to force his way into Klopp's plans?
I think he has, but at the same time, I think Klopp will start with a similar 11 to what we played last season. I don't think he's going to make many changes because at the end of the day, like, we won the league and we're literally in a position where we haven't brought that many players in. We don't know if Gini's going or not. So it's like, I think whether Gini starts will be a key as to whether he's going or staying. Because if he starts, I think, oh yeah, Klopp obviously sees him, doesn't want him to go. Whereas I think if he doesn't start, then obviously he's probably on his way out. I think with Minamino, I think he still needs to prove himself for me. I don't think he's shown me what he's fully capable of, if I'm being honest. I think we need to see him work with everyone more just to see how that's going to work in terms of our starting 11, whether he'll have a permanent place, whether... For me, I'm just not sure.
It's good to see that he is impressed in pre-season. He's got a couple of goals of that, but I would agree, I wouldn't change it too much from the start of last season. I mean, it'd be one of those, he'll come on around 65, well, depending on the game goes, about 65, 70 minutes. Replace whoever is going to come off. Obviously, it depends on the state of the game. If a couple of goals up, he probably would do that. But for me, I'd start him on the bench for this one.
I think that's the way Klopp likes to bring in most players as well. Like, gives them like 10, 20 minutes a game off the bench, ease them in gently, see whether it works, see if it changes anything. So, yeah, I agree. I think maybe we'll just bring them on for about 15 minutes or something, see what happens, and then go from there, see if it works, really.
What are you thinking, Paul?
I agree. I think he'll probably be on the bench on Saturday. I think he'll probably start in the likes of the League Cup tie, give Firmino a rest. I think he'll probably start in a couple of Champions League games, depending on the draw. If you get somebody, again, no disrespect, but if you get somebody like Genk or Red Star Belgrade, who we've had over the last couple of seasons, they're the type of games where, especially at home, you're probably expected to win 2 or 3-0. And he can sort of get involved in those as well and give rest to any one of the front three, because he can play either wide, left, right, or down the middle. So I think he will have a part to play. There will be league games which he does start in. I just think that Saturday's probably a little bit too early for him.
Yeah, it's difficult to see anyone getting in that front three, really. Mane, Salah and Firmino. He's not going to dislodge them. If he decides to go 4-2-3-1, there's a chance maybe he gets in there. But yeah, I can't see there being much change. I think, as Grace said, it's all eyes on Wijnaldum, whether he starts or not. And, if he doesn't start and that's just going to kickstart the rumour mill again. So that's something to look forward to. We're going to finish with our hot topic of the week, or just hot topic. But anyway, it's a hot topic. Grace, I'm going to let you take this one.
So I'm just wondering, as a fan, whether we actually think we're going to see any games this season. Like, for me, I'm really looking forward to the start of the new season. But I feel like I'm this balloon, and it's been popped slightly when you find out that, yeah, the new season's starting. Oh, great, could win the league again. But actually, you might not see any of these games. So I feel like that's put a dampener on the start of the season for me. Yeah, I'm buzzing to get it going again. Can't wait to be putting my fantasy selection in this week. Already done it. And sorting everything out. But are we going to see any games? Are we going to be allowed back in? If they let 12,000 in, how on earth are they going to manage that? Because how are they going to pick who gets in, who doesn't get in? How are they going to rotate it? If you go with your mum or your dad or your brother or your mate, how do they figure out, oh, you two can get in, you're not from the same household, you two can get in, you're from the same household? Like, how on earth are they going to figure all that out? Like, don't know about me, but do you think that you're going to see any games this season? Do you think if we won the league again, you'd be in the grounds? Like, what are you thinking?
It's a hard one, isn't it? It's one of them. I think that the bit that gets me is that, you know, last season when it all kicked off in mid-March and we'd just been knocked out by Atletico Madrid, we, as a supporter base, not just Liverpool, but nationwide, said, yes, we will stay away from games to complete the season and to flatten this curve. Now, no matter what government figures you go off, whether you believe them, whether you don't, whatever, this curve has been flattened since July. So we are now sat at home, and they told us that things would get back to normal once this curve had been flattened. 3 months down the line, and we're all still sat here going, we play Leeds on Saturday and we can't go. You know, I follow rugby league a little bit, and what worries me is that when rugby league stopped Super League and put a halt on Super League, they said within a couple of weeks we will start on August the 1st and we will have fans back in from October the 1st. Now that was in April time, maybe May at the latest. So it's been planned all along. For me, I don't think, you know, I'm not dismissing there's a virus, because of course, yes, there's a virus and we've got to protect it, and we've got to protect our vulnerable, whether that be families, relatives, general public, whatever that may be. But for me, there's got to be some get out of where do we draw the line? So, you know, the numbers that they're quoting at the moment for locking down air bridges and countries and all the rest of it is 20 people per 100,000. That's 0.02% of the population. Where do we draw the line? So every time somebody sneezes, do we close a football stadium? You know, every time somebody crashes a car, what do we do? Do we take all cars off the road because we've got to? You know, for me, I get, you know, there might be some people who don't want to go. I personally think that you should, you know, the way technology is now, you should be able to do your temperature checks, do your checks and all the rest of it and sign a waiver. There will never, ever, ever be any possibility of confirming that you caught COVID at Anfield, for example. How can you say you caught? You know, if you go, every year you get a cold in the winter or whatever, tell me where you caught it. You don't know. You go to work, you go to Asda, you go to wherever you go, and you touch all sorts of services. Your kids go to nursery and school. Yeah, sorry, other supermarkets are available. You go to all these sorts of places. Your kids are putting toys in the mouth and all sorts of stuff. You can never, ever say, I caught that cold at that place at that time. Just sign a waiver and let's say, you know what, if you want to go to the game, here's a waiver. You won't ever come back to Liverpool Football Club and say, I caught it here, blah, 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 and let's just get on with it. Let's get people going the game again. You know, people say about it's people's jobs and all this sort of stuff, but there's people who work for football clubs. I know people who've been laid off for 6 months now because they work, their only sole income and their sole job is a football club. Where do we draw the line?
I think you mentioned Super League. You mentioned Super League as well. Obviously, they've had like a fair few positive tests and they've had to reschedule games and all that. So I think obviously they've got the protocols in place to know what to do if something like that happens. I think, yeah, if we sign a waiver, then it's each individual person's decision at the end of the day. So, and for for some people, football is their life, like live and breathe football. I know people who literally just, the only thing they do to socialise is to go to the game. They don't see their mates outside of the stadium. So I think for them, it's so important. Like, people, I know this is deep, but it's people's mental health and like their livelihood, their life is going to the game. You can't go on like this forever. You can't think, oh yeah, because if you think about it, the flu's been around for years. The flu's still here now. Like, if we signed a form that says, okay, if I get COVID, I'm not going to blame you, then they should let people back in. I agree with that. I think that's a good plan, because then they can't get blamed, can they, if someone says, oh, I caught it from you.
I don't even think you need to sign a waiver, because if you look at any match ticket that you buy, there's terms and conditions on that match ticket. So just stick it in the terms and conditions, you know. I mean, I don't know. I've got plenty of tickets laying around here that I probably have all sorts on the back of it. So you just print it on the back. You know, you purchasing this ticket means that you are consenting to not trying to, you know, sue the club or claim that, you know, damages or anything like that. That's job done. And as you say, if you were that worried about going the match, you wouldn't go the match. It's as simple as that.
I think Grace has...
Go on.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I think Grace has touched on a very important point. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I've had times where I've struggled not going the game and things because, like you say, that I go to work Monday to Friday. If I can't be bothered getting out of bed on a Thursday, you know, I lie there and I think, if I don't get up, I'm not going to Arsenal on Sunday, or I'm not going to Man U, or whatever it may be, you know, because I need these wages to go to the game, and that's how it is. And, you know, it's been difficult. One of the fellas who comes with us, you know, he's been travelling so when we played Brighton, he went and stayed in Brighton and watched it in a pub in Brighton, because that's how he copes. That's what he wanted to do, to feel that he was coping with missing the game. You know, I've had people phoning me who have not been out the house for 5-6 months because, you know, that they fear of COVID. So I'm not going to criticise anybody who turns around and says, you know what, I'm not comfortable in going the game. And I think the announcement from the club last week that they're going to freeze season tickets and all the rest of it is a very, very positive move, because it can give people like that the confidence to go, well, I can wait until maybe next season where I feel a bit more comfortable. But for the likes of myself, and I'm guessing there's thousands others out there, not just from Liverpool, but from clubs up and down the country, whether that be in the Premier League or, you know, non-league, Leagues 1, 2 and whatever, there will be fans of every club who are sitting there just going, look, I'll do whatever it takes. I'll sign whatever you want me to sign. I'll scan whatever QR code you want me to scan and just get me in the game.
Yeah. I think Liverpool have put out a survey. I don't know whether any of you've seen that. There was a survey that they put out to fans asking, you know, do you think people should wear masks? Do you think people should Liverpool install more, you know, what's the word, the hand gel stuff in the ground? You know, they're obviously doing something or planning ahead, but I think they're very limited because of the government. I think it's very unclear what direction we're going in at the moment. And I, you know, as you say, Paul, it was all, you know, let's flatten this curve, and the curve's flat. You know, there's been days where nobody's died. There's been days where less than 10 people have died. Plenty of days. And as you say, where do we draw the line? Do we just carry on like this until a vaccine comes out, which is not going to be till next winter, they're saying? You know, I think the very important thing I've got from it on a little bit of a different note is the fact that football can still go ahead without any fans in the ground tells me that they're charging far too much for tickets. Ticket prices should drop. If they can survive without any income, any hospitality income, they're ripping people off. I don't know what you think about that, Kieran.
Yeah, I was certainly at Premier League level anyway. And obviously there's a different argument about clubs lower down who are desperate for money to get the fans in. But certainly the Premier League clubs, there shouldn't be an issue at all. I mean, now what is it, 45, 50 quid you charge in a game? It's completely bonkers. Even more for, you know, higher tier games. So I completely agree with that, yeah. But I am really looking forward to getting back in that stadium. Just, you know, like the others have said, that's the one thing you look at. When the fixtures came out the other week, you look at it and go, oh, I'll be at home first game. Will I be at home on Boxing Day, New Year, last day of the season? But yeah, I just looked at the fixtures and went, okay, just took them like, you know, that buzz wasn't there. So there needs to be a solution, and a solution very quickly.
I don't think we're on our own here. I think every fan base will be thinking a similar thing. And let's hope that, obviously there's talk of October being sort of the time they're going to start trialing things and letting some people back in. Let's hope that they can just get it back to normal. And not be like the schools have gone back where it's, you know, I don't know how many schools have been shut this week already because of a coronavirus case. Okay, well, thank you all for your time this evening. Much appreciated as ever. We'll be back again at some point next week. We haven't planned that far ahead yet, to talk about the Leeds game and a bit more. So it's my thanks to Kieran Grayson. Kieran, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Dave.
Thank you very much. Grace, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Paul, pleasure as ever, my friend.
Thank you, as always, mate.
Thanks for watching and listening, and we'll see you again soon.